Welcome to the Breakthrough RE Elite Agent Spotlight, where we speak with some of the best and brightest in the real estate industry to help inspire, elevate, and innovate your real estate business. I'm your host, Kole Finley, Principal Owner of Finley-RE Coaching and Consulting. All right, let's get to it. I sat down recently with one of our very special transformational clients, and her name is Julie Quesada. And Julie has gone through an extraordinary transition and transformation over the last 12 months. So I wanted to sit down with her and kind of share her story of what she has gone through and who she is now becoming. It's just such a wonderful story. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, a very special conversation with Julie Quesada. Okay, Julie, I am so excited that I'm here with you today. You know, you're one of those people, you're one of my clients, but you're also one of those people that is such an inspiration to watch as you grow. Now, I know you're about one of the most humble people I know, so that probably just embarrassed you when I said that. But but I got to tell you, you and I've been working together for, I've known you for about 3 years or so, but we've been working together for about a year, and your growth has been so extraordinary. And that's really what I wanted to make sure that people got to meet you and hear your amazing story and certainly get inspired as much as I'm inspired by you every day.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of me and for giving me the opportunity to sit down and chat with you because one, I love any chance that I can get to sit and chat with you. But two, it's an honor that you would think that much of me to have me come talk to you and the people that you influence.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's go on a little like history trip a little bit. Take us back before real estate. What did you do before real estate? Take us through a little history lesson.
Oh my goodness, I feel I have lived a few lives. My life, going way back, just as in a brief, I actually am an East Coast girl. I was born in Washington D.C., raised in Maryland, just outside of D.C., and so I started this life as an East Coast girl, and my parents picked me up and plunked me out of my East Coast life when I was 13 and moved me to the middle of the desert in a little town called Lake Havasu in the middle of nowhere, where it was very much a culture shock for this East Coast girl to go to this lake town that was so based in California Valley girls back in the 80s,
Mhm,
and so I began trying to figure out, oh my goodness, how is this East Coast girl gonna fit in in this little town?
mhm.
And lived in Lake Havasu, went to junior high school, or excuse me, high school and junior college there. And I was that gal who was involved in everything. I was the anchor of the local the high school TV show. Then after that, in junior college, I was the anchor of the little local Havasu highlights and happenings news show, and that was the path I was going to head on to college. Was I was going to be a journalist and to try to be a broadcaster,
Mhm.
and that did not quite go the way I had anticipated. I ended up going to NAU in Flagstaff, and I became a teacher. And so my first career was being a teacher,
Mhm.
and that was a 10-year stretch of time in my life that was absolutely amazing. And it still brings me great joy. And so that was my first career, being an elementary school teacher.
Gotcha, gotcha. So here's what I heard you say, and this is interesting because I think people will get this as we still go along your journey. Back in the day, when you were in high school and doing all those things, you were just kind of that it girl. Like you had the confidence, you were doing all the stuff. That was just who you felt you were at that time. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. At 18 years old, I was the president of a nonprofit organization, sitting on a board of directors with uh, all adults. I, everybody was 40 or older, and I was the president of this nonprofit called Havasu for Youth, and I
Mhm.
helped run these activities that bridge the gap between youth in Lake Havasu and the adult community, and the projects, service projects, things like that. And so that was not your typical 18, I was actually on the board even as a 16 and 17-year-old, but when I turned 18, they were like, oh, you could be president if you wanted to. So okay.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know what? And I can totally see that. I can totally see that. Okay, so didn't end up going into the uh, media, but you decided to go into teaching. What can you tell us kind of why those changes were made or?
It is actually a little bit of a sad story. When I was in high school, I was in a vocational industrial club, and I was with another strong female, and she was my production person. She was behind the camera. I was in front of the camera. We had actually won the vocational state competition, and we went to Kentucky to compete nationally. We were, the broadcasting duo gals, and we were given the opportunity to come down to Phoenix. These two little girls, young gals from Lake Havasu, and we came to a local news station here that is still in existence. And we got to spend the day in the newsroom. And that morning, um, the producers, we were all sitting in this huddle around this whiteboard, and this one producer said, well, we better pray to the accident gods that we get some good ones today. And it was just that realization, whether she was joking or not, and just kind of the way the day progressed and how we watched the behind the scenes truly of this local news station here in Phoenix. It just became very clear and evident that wasn't necessarily the lifestyle nor the mindset that I wanted to be a part of.
Mm.
And so I thought, I come from a long line of teachers and firefighters, and so I decided to head that teaching route when that day of just the brutalness of
Yeah,
what the news outlet was looking for in this local news station here in Phoenix. So that is the catalyst that kind of shifted me in a different direction.
that's amazing. So it really sounded like it would. So it was going against your principles. It was going against your set of
My
morals
heart,
and your heart. Yeah.
I'm not going to pray to the accident gods for some good ones today. No,
No,
no.
gotcha. Okay, so you go into teaching, and I know that you absolutely loved being a teacher. No, so what grade were you teaching?
Um, this was back in the 90s, and at that time, it was very hard to get a teaching position. It wasn't what you knew, it was who you knew and the
Oh, really?
connections that you made. And I was trying so desperately to get a job here in the Phoenix area, going to interviews, and was not successful getting a position. And I called my professors from NAU. We were very close in a very amazing cohort program that I had been a part of, where I taught in Sedona for an entire year. Every day, a group of us went down, and I said to them, I said, I know that this is my calling. I know I'm good at this, but I cannot get through these interviews and get to this position. I can't get a job. I can't get hired. And they knew that that didn't quite sound right to them either, knowing me. And
Mhm.
so one of my professors used to teach in Gilbert Public Schools. She called a friend, and that friend is a principal. She got me an interview with another principal. I got to sit down with this principal, show her, my portfolio from college and student teaching, and she hired me instantly. So I was like, oh, I just needed that person to make that connection and
Mhm.
get me in the door, get me in the door.
I love
And
it.
then I stayed because I had been doing substitute teaching at 4 different districts. Every morning I was getting an automated call. I had a little pad of paper. This is before cell phones, writing down which school I was going to be, a PE teacher, an art teacher, a third grade teacher as a substitute. And it was a crazy life to do for, almost a year. And then I got my position in Gilbert, and I was a fifth grade teacher for 9 years there. So that first year of bouncing around, trying to substitute at a different school in 4 different districts every day was tiring and not so much fun.
Yeah, and yet, there's something I know about you is that you have a wonderful fortitude, right? And you've got wonderful persistence. You're not one of those people who just gives up when things just get a little bit, you know, challenging. So I think I can totally see that with you. It's just hanging it up, doing it, sticking to it until you finally got the position. And I know you loved teaching too. That's kind of at your heart. What was it
Well,
about teaching that you liked so much?
there was so many things. The camaraderie of my staff, faculty and staff, whether they're certified or classified, just the relationships and the connections. An elementary school staff is like a family in a sense. You are together all day long. You are in the trenches. You are, sometimes you're battling against the administration, or sometimes you're battling against, the school board or the town or the state department of ed, and sometimes you're not heard, and your needs and your wants and your wishes and your hopes and your dreams that you went into teaching to be this champion of children. And yet that's not exactly how it always
Mm,
trickles down when it comes down to funding and state testing and all those types of things. And so I loved my colleagues and staff. And then the most beautiful and part that just still keeps me going to this day were the connections and the relationships that I made with the families, where, because I taught fifth grade the entire time, I would have, you know, I would have the oldest daughter and then the youngest son of the same family. And I would have, and they would make sure to request me, oh, well, our son had Mrs. Quesada, we want our daughter, or this first son had her, and I want our second son to have her. And so that to me was
mm,
that bond with the families, that they loved and trusted me enough to
right.
to want to request me again and have, and then I got to bond with these families. And to this day in my real estate career, my number one referral source is the teaching staff, colleagues, my students, my actual students who are now grown-ups, their families are my number one referral source in my real estate business.
Oh, wow. And we'll kind of talk why in a minute, but I can already see, well, like we're planting the seeds for why you are such a client connection expert. So we'll come to that. But okay, so now let's fast forward. You decide to go into real estate. Tell us that story. How'd you decide to go into real estate?
That was in 2005 when our real estate industry was booming in the Phoenix area. We were having the explosion between '04 and '06, and everybody, houses couldn't sit for an hour, couldn't even put a sign in the yard. And my husband and I, we had investment properties of our own, and he said, one of us should really get our real estate license, because we would save on the fees, and if one of us does it, then we can do it for all of our own personal deals that we have going. And one of us, he's like, well, you are a teacher, you have summers off, so why don't you do it? And I was like, oh, okay, well, the fact that we have a 5-year-old and two, you know 2-year-old twins, yeah, okay,
Sure.
sure. So I went, yeah, all that spare time. And
Right.
so I just went about that summer of '05, and by July, I think I did it in about a month. I just did, night classes and sometimes day classes, depending on help with my family and my husband of watching my three girlies. And I did it, knocked it out. I passed my test first try, and got my license in the craziest market before our COVID craze that we just had a few years ago, of the time in '05, a crazy market,
Wow.
absolute insanity back then.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Everybody wanted to be a real estate agent back
Right.
then.
And again, your stick to itiveness, it stuck. So you left then the education realm and then went into real estate full time. How soon after that did that
I
happen?
actually, so in '05, I was to the point, because when the twins came along, that that chaos, that controlled chaos of my two little bundles of joy at once, I had actually switched from a full-time teaching position to a job sharing position, where my partner and we rotated. I worked 2 days a week, she worked three, and then we would switch. And so I was already in a part-time teaching position, and I would have probably stayed doing that forever. And just because I loved my job, I loved my school, I really loved having a part-time teaching job and being able to be home with the girls as well. But my business part, or my teaching partner at the time, it wasn't working out for her to be a part-time teacher. She needed to go back to full-time. With my girls being so little, I just wasn't in the place where I could go back to teaching full-time with them. So I decided, well, that was '06. My final year teaching was in '06. And I thought, well, I've got this real estate license. Maybe I can make a go of that. And
Mhm.
that was when the market was starting to crash. And I thought, oh, wow. And I didn't know enough. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
I was so focused on being a mom and being a teacher. I had this thing, this real estate license hanging on the wall, and I wasn't really quite sure what to do with it, but I was going to figure it out.
And of course, how many years later now?
Yes, I believe what's that? This is my 19th year. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you ended up then um, doing this, being great. You ended up joining a team, right? If I remember correctly. Take us through when you and Hope started working together?
we actually we started working together 17 years ago. My I had a with the company that we were with at the time, my mentor trainer, she knew that I needed some supplemental income because I wasn't teaching anymore, even part-time teaching. Imagine our poor teachers don't make much as it is full-time, but me as a part-time teacher, wasn't making too much. And then not having that at all, knowing that I was trying to get this real estate business off of the ground in '07, I believe it was. My mentor introduced me to Hope, and Hope at the time high producing agent, and she just needed some help. And so I was her, a couple days a week, hourly paid person, and I worked for her um, as a part time licensed agent, assistant, helper, you know, um, and we did that through 2000. So that was '07 to 2000, and then that's when we made the decision to move to our current brokerage, and we formed our actual team Trusted Advisor Home Group
Gotcha.
together as co-founders. Versus I was no longer working for her, I was working with her, and so we became a team, a co-owning, sharing everything 50-50
Gotcha. So,
in
so
four
from
years.
2000 to 2020, then you became her full-fledged partner. 2020,
2020, yeah.
2020. Okay, gotcha.
So 4 years we've had our team.
Yeah, and I think I met you in 2022, I want to say. And uh one of the sweetest people I've ever met. I just loved you when I first met you. Um, and there was some interesting thing about how you thought about yourself, how you thought about um who you were, what you brought to the world, all these kind of things. Because you and I, one of the things that you wanted to do was change your life. Now, I want to go back for a second. You back in high school, the it girl doing all this stuff, president of a board at 18, all this kind of stuff. And if we go through, I remember when you and I first started working together, you said that you were a shit show. You were a hot mess. You were
Mhm.
using all of this interesting language about you. How did we go from it girl to that point where you just felt like you were not?
Yeah, unfortunately, in 2006, my dad passed away 1 week before my college graduation as a teacher. And so he was an amazing role model in my bud. I'm an only child, and he was. I was a daddy's girl in that regard, but not the sappy, gooey type of daddy's girl. He was more of a. He called me kid, and he just taught me about life and taught me about business and relationships and how to handle myself. And so it wasn't the sweet, spoiled, gooey father daughter thing. We were just, the relationship was amazing. And I lost him after a year-long battle with cancer. And the fact that it was a week before my college graduation as I'm going into this new career teaching, and I just lost myself. I lost that
Mhm.
fire. I lost that independence and that strong. I just retreated. I just
Yeah,
caved in and just I just became this little. I mean, I was still my outgoing extrovert kind of a self in
right.
general, but that confidence and that person who was running a nonprofit and organizing events and handling board meetings, and I and on the local TV station, doing an interview from a hot air balloon, interviewing the mayor, things like that. That that young woman just kind of retreated in herself and
Mhm.
got lost for a very long time,
Yeah.
not knowing what to do, how to do it without my dad. So that was,
Mm.
yes, that's where the disconnect was, the loss of that fire, that independence, that strength that I thought I was and had. I somehow lost or misplaced. I don't know what the right word is, or just
Mhm.
I wasn't leaning into it and being that gal anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and here's the interesting thing about you, and I really want to share this with everybody because I think it's so vitally important to our conversation here. You are probably one of the single best people of how you make people feel. You and I have talked about Maya Angelou's quote, and people won't remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. That's always like, if we look back at even the the TV producers, right? And how that was against who you were at your core. Um, Regardless of what you felt about yourself, your job, like you've always felt that it's your role in the world in it to make people feel amazing about themselves. Walk us through that kind of side of yourself for a second.
Absolutely. That quote means so much to me and always has, because I if you look at my disc, you know, if you look at my five love languages, touch, acts of service, things like that, I have always been even if I go back to being a teacher, my learning style, I'm a kinetic, touch feel type of person. And
Mhm.
so I knew that this was who I am and how I make things happen in my world and in my heart of how I wanted to be, how I wanted to lead my life, and that I believe led very well and transitioned into being a teacher, because that is all I did all day long, was just love on, care for, and try to guide these little people who were 10 years old. And then that's how I treated everyone. I come at everything, I believe, because I started this career in life as a teacher with the heart of a teacher.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes am I a little too enabling? Am I a little too, a little too loving and hands on? Is that a bad thing? No, no. But sometimes, I have to, make sure that I make time for myself, and that I think now I know that I have to put myself into that mix and care for myself
Mhm.
as I try to care for others, which I
Yeah.
didn't know before.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, right? Because you're the type of person that you walk into a room and everybody's grateful that Julie's there because how you make them feel. And yet, when you and I first started working together, it's about a year ago, you were not that person to you.
Mm-mm,
T- t-
absolutely not.
Tell us what you were like toward yourself at that time.
Yeah, and I think, in that losing myself, losing that confidence, losing, when my dad passed, and not feeling that inner strength or feeling that self-confidence, it is something that I have struggled with. It correlates to weight, things like that too, my self-image, my uh, just how I felt I looked, and how I felt I presented myself. Everybody always knew that I was, going to genuinely love and care about them and take care of them and do whatever I could. But I did not have any of that for myself. I just, the self-talk, the things I would say to myself, or when I would look in the mirror, um, the things I would think to myself about myself, or even maybe verbalize to myself in a mirror, or in the reflection of a glass door walking into a store.
Mm.
They were horrible and awful and so negative, and that's just what I believed about myself, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't beautiful, that I wasn't strong, that I wasn't any of those things. But that's not anything that I portrayed to someone who I was trying to help or work with, or um, that I was just doing to myself. That's the
Right.
horrible negative talk I was doing to myself.
Yeah.
I never gave myself any of the grace or mercy that I give to so many others,
Mm-hmm.
though that I try to give. That's how I try to live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we started working together, and I remember so clearly, like the first day you were, like we all, very first day we just get to know each other and talk. And you were just telling me, and you used those words about yourself, that you were a shit show, that you were a
Sure.
hot mess, that you
Yes.
were
Yeah.
not worthy.
Fake it
I
to
mean,
make it, perfume on a pig.
yeah, all you name, yeah, you
all, the,
used all of them.
all those. Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
I believed it. I believed it that I was just this, treading water, trying to keep my head above water and just trying to um, give this idea that I was good enough. But I
Hmm.
didn't believe it. I
Right.
didn't think I was. I just thought, oh, you're just faking it. You're just doing that, you're the iceberg where you can see the tip, but underneath there's so much more that nobody can see and knows what's going on down there, because that's that shit show. That's that constant turmoil in your mind, in your head, and not believing that you can accomplish, or even recognizing the things I had already accomplished. I've jumped out of an airplane. I've done a half marathon. I've given birth to 3 children, two at once. I have a master's degree in education. I don't sit around eating bonbons or I feel now I can look back and see the things that I wasn't even giving myself credit for,
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
we started. And even in when, because we've always, we've started our knowing each other in person, and then we've done a lot more Zoom because of COVID and everything that happened. And
Hmm.
but even the way I've noticed how I face myself to you on camera. Before it was kind of always like hunched in and leaning over.
Hmm.
And now I'm more of a got my shoulders
Oh
back, and I'm,
yeah. Oh
you know,
yeah.
or it was like, okay, can I make the camera, like, how do I make the camera so I can be small? And now I'm like, here I am. I'm on the camera.
I love it. I love it. Well, before we started working together and you were in that um just real negative self-image kind of space, how was that affecting your team? How was that affecting your personal life? Like, walk us through, how was
I
that
actually
working?
have a visual aid. That teacher in me brought a visual aid. This is a pen, an adorable little pen, and it's cute and it's teal, and it's a ticket at the top, and it says "shit show, admit one," and it's all bling bling and cute. And um, this pen has such symbolism. I have this amazing, Hope and I have an amazing assistant. She's a young woman, and she's an agent as well, licensed agent. And we were out shopping for a client gift one day, and we found these cute little pens, and we were going through them, and they had little puppy dogs or kittens or frogs or whatever, all these cute cactus, whatever's on these pens in this little store we were in. And this shit show pen was there. And I was like, oh, look, this was made for me. Shit show ticket. Here I am. And my sweet, sweet, amazing assistant, she had got me like a little tea towel from the place, and that pen and some other little things and some homemade cards that were there. It was a great store. And she gave it to me. And when I saw it, I thought, oh no. She was doing such a kind and wonderful thing, getting me this pen that I had picked up. I'm like, oh, this is me, ticket to the shit show. And then I thought, oh no, Julie, what, for the last year, she's been with us for 2 years now, and what have I done? What message have I given to my assistant about myself and who I
Hmm.
am and what I am? I have given her the message that I am a shit show, because that's all I ever said. I was like, oh, I'm faking it to make it. I'm a shit show. And she heard that, and she was so kind and sweet as to buy me this little pen. And I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? This is what I'm putting out there. And it wasn't just to her, it was to everybody.
Right.
But this was this little pen was that pivotal moment of, oh my gosh, what have I done? What am I doing?
So when you first saw the pen, and this is before we started working together, you first saw the pen, you related.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you had done a lot of work of changing who you were. And yet,
Hmm.
because you had anchored and said those things so many times, she was reconnecting with you and that thing,
Yeah.
and just reaffirming that this is what she's heard you say. Yeah.
And
Fascinating.
at that moment, I realized I will never, refer to myself as a shit show anymore.
Mhm.
Now, does shit occasionally hit the fan still? Yeah. Do I still not have everything together all the time? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. But will I ever identify as a member of the shit show. No, no, I'm not that person anymore. I will never be that person again. That's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be, and that's not how
Mhm.
I'm going to get to the level and achieve the things I want to achieve. I can't do that being a shit show.
Mhm.
It's gonna
Absolutely.
happen.
Absolutely.
Can't do it.
So let's take us back to when you and I first started working together. There is something you've perfected, and it's a system. But maybe you can take us through what if we could start looking at the things that you were really working on. What do you think like your top 3 things were? Because you learned some methodology and then you started really applying it. What do you think those things were that started changing you from someone who had such a poor self-image to someone who's really rather extraordinary these days?
Well, the reframing, and I feel like I had to become a reframing queen. Like that
Mhm.
had when you taught me about that, and you taught me how to do that, and you taught me, well, not just how to do it, but why I needed it. What was the purpose, and
Mhm.
what was its function going to do for me personally and professionally? And that is, I had to literally almost, and I think that might have been an assignment from you, like reframe every minute of my day. I don't know if it was every minute, but it felt like, okay, every situation where this negative talk, this shit show mindset, you're not worthy, you're not beautiful, um, you're not anything,
Mhm.
would start to creep in. That's when I would have to think, okay, stop. Sometimes shake my head a little bit, do something physical to think, okay, reframe this. How can I change the way I'm thinking, reacting, speaking to myself, speaking to others? Um, and that by far, uh, leaps and bounds was what started to change me to get to the point where we are today. Because I always jokingly say that I'm your little hybrid of, between business coaching and transformational coaching, because I couldn't have received your business coaching without the transformational coaching first, that
Right.
piece. And actually, but you were always intermixing. I feel like you're always intermixing the
Huh.
two. But for me, you knew how to start to chip away at that
Sure.
wall.
Sure. Well, let's take everybody back to, so I want to help everybody understand what reframing is, right? Because, and I think one of the first things we started out as is when you're so ingrained in seeing things a certain way, sometimes we can break that pattern and say, what else could this mean that actually serves me? What else could this mean that is different? And I remember one of the very first ones we did, and there's probably a lot of people, especially women listening to this today that might definitely feel this, right? So you would get up, you'd be afraid to walk in and see the mirror. You didn't even want to see the mirror. And
Nope.
I remember we said, how do you reframe that? And I think I said to you, I said, uh, can you stand? I said, yes. How many people can't? Can you walk? Yes. How many people can't? Um, can you see? Yes. How many people can't? And we started looking at and changing what you thought about the things that you were seeing. Right now, I've always seen you as this stunningly beautiful woman. I think most people really do. Right. And yet there was a self-talk that when you saw that mirror, I remember the day though. You you and I were coaching that day and you were wearing a short skirt and you were wearing this blue top, this electric blue top, and you felt all that in a bag of chips. And it was like you,
That's probably what I
it's,
said. It sounds
I
like
did
what
was,
I said.
yeah. Do you remember that day?
Yep.
Because I
Yep.
think that was the day I just went, yep, she's got it. She's clicked it, right? Tell us about that day. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah. I have blue eyes, and the one thing that I have always held on to, like, oh gosh, like I don't even, so precious, is that everybody has always told me, oh, you have such beautiful blue eyes. And so I'm a person who will wear blues and teals and things like that, because it will make my blue eyes stick out, I guess, or be
Sure.
more predominant. And that blue sweater, it was. it had a little collar, but it was form fitting, and I had on a, black skirt, and it just, I just felt pretty. And in my life, there haven't always been a lot of days where I just felt pretty and I just felt, confident. And that was a day. And it was just, because I knew that I was safe behind the blue, because that was my little armor, to wear blue, because I knew that if I could wear blue, then someone might, then they would see my eyes. And I knew if someone could see my eyes, they would think I was pretty, or think, think I looked nice or whatever. And that was, and that sounds so vain to say, but that was just a lifeline for me to hold on to something like that, to just try to feel pretty, and to, feel like I, um, could be beautiful.
Yeah. And that was virtually impossible for you before that day.
Mm. Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I never had trouble feeling, people always told me that I was beautiful on the inside, but and people would even tell me, you're beautiful inside and out, but I couldn't receive that. I couldn't accept that, because all I saw was, fat face, double chin, wrinkles on my forehead, the various sizes that I've been from a 10 to a 20. you know,
yeah,
those are the things I saw. I saw the stretch marks and the cellulite, and I couldn't see past.
no.
I couldn't see past any of that.
And you couldn't see past, I think you perhaps longed for the way that you were treating everybody else was as this perfectly wonderful, uh, a valued, beautiful human being, right? And I remember this was an interesting exercise that we did. And this was fairly early on. We were talking about reframing, and I said, what I want you to do over this next week is every single woman
Woman.
that you see, regardless of what she looks like or feels, find the beauty in her. What is the thing that you can see in her, regardless of, is she a very old woman? Is she a young child? Is she, does she have a
Hmm.
defect, whatever?
Yep.
That was an interesting, because you naturally are always wanting to tell people that, but there was something about that exercise that I think was really important for you. Can you
Oh,
walk us through that?
absolutely. Because there was actually a couple of parts to that with you, though, in that assignment. I think it actually went over the course of a couple of weeks, maybe a
Mhm.
month even, where
Yeah.
you were having me identify, because I held myself to the standard of what I thought a perfect woman had to be. And you were like, I want you to go look out there and find me that perfect woman. Keep looking every day, everywhere, look. And I couldn't find her. I couldn't find what I perceived as the perfect woman. And in the same regard, you had me looking for, well, what, since you couldn't find that perfect, beautiful woman who is, this big and this and all the things. And then you wanted me to look and switch it, instead of just, and try to find what other things were beautiful in these other women. And one thing that I have always tried to do is, just because it has brought me such, um, fulfillment and kindness and love when someone compliments me on something, like my eyes, because it's normally that, and that just, oh, fuels me. I try very hard every day to find a woman and give her a very specific compliment.
Mhm.
Not just, oh, you're so pretty. No, that's generic and it's not rooted in anything. And so I will try to be very specific and mindful of, oh my gosh, you look great in that floral pattern. Or, oh my goodness, that orange shirt looks great with your skin tone. Or I will try to make, or, girl, you are rocking those heels. I will try to be very specific and not a generic comment or compliment to a woman every day. It doesn't matter if I'm in the grocery store, pumping gas. If it's
Yeah.
the Amazon driver, it doesn't matter. I try to do that to empower other women, because it would be something that I know that I love hearing, if someone were to ever say it to me. And so those exercises with you over the course of that month, never finding the perfect woman. Oh, she's not there because she doesn't exist. That's a thing that's made up in my head of what this perfect woman, or what I would have to look like or be. And then looking to see these other things that make women beautiful and people beautiful, people
Mhm.
beautiful, that
Mhm.
the way they carry themselves, how they treat people, um, how they interact in a room or a conference or a class. So
Yeah.
those were absolutely life-changing activities that we did.
And you took it so to heart. And that was a huge transformation for you.
Oh, I was even doing it this past week at that conference. I was at the national conference for a week in Las Vegas, and I was doing it there, trying to find that perfect woman. She wasn't there. But then looking for, oh my gosh, what makes her amazing? What makes her amazing? Because our field is dominated by women. There was so many women, and I met so many beautiful women inside and out, and got to have conversations with them and connect with them. And that was an absolutely phenomenal experience.
So how has that then, so when you, before kind of all this and you were with your team, you even held yourself subservient to
Mhm.
your partner for the longest time, right?
Yeah, I was always the Robin to the Batman, um, yeah, I'm trying to think of other duos. I was just always, even though we had co-founded and we were partners, equal, sharing everything, because I'd worked for my partner for so long, I was just always, took her lead, and she was the higher producing agent. I took her lead, and we just, and then I realized that I needed to stop um, thinking that my thoughts, needs, wants weren't important or didn't matter. And I'm like, I can contribute. I can bring to this team. I can be leadership. I can be influential, and I can run and help run a team and do the things that need to be done to be successful. And so that all, I have jokingly said that sometimes I compare myself. It's not a joke. I've actually said it because I believed it. That I tended to sometimes be a doormat in my personal life. Even within my husband, my relationship, or with others. I would be happy just being Switzerland, trying to make everybody get along, and just be the doormat, and just let anybody walk all over me for anything. And not necessarily that they were walking on me, but that I just didn't. I was choosing to not speak up, or to not say the things that I wanted, or the things that I thought were important, and advocate for myself. I wasn't doing that, and so that is something that no longer we are not the shit show, and we are not quiet about what Julie's needs are anymore. What Julie
Mhm.
um, needs to have happen, or what Julie wants to have happen, or Julie's thoughts and opinions. I make sure that I bark up now.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of barking going on.
Well, and you
I,
really leaned
you
into your
know,
leadership, right? I think that's where it was. You found that voice who was the uh who was the chairman of the board, or and who was the that girl, you found her again, and she found her voice again.
well, and it's funny. I was sharing with you one of our recent coaching calls. My best friend from freshman year in high school, and she knew me before my dad passed, and she knew all, the things I was in high school. And, she always teased me for being a part of all the clubs and doing all the things, and being the, anchor on nightlife news, our high school TV show. And she knew that, was just who I was. And that was a part of me. And we were out to dinner the other night, and I told her about something I had done, or the way I said something. And she looked at me and she goes, "That's the Julie I remember. That's the Julie that
Wow.
I know and love." Not that she doesn't love me now, but she was
Right.
like, "Oh," and then it took me aback, because I was like, "Oh wow," she's noticing that this Julie is making a little bit of a time travel back to the Julie that was, and
Mhm.
so very long ago. I mean, we're talking close to 30 years of being in different transitions, different stages in life. Teacher, mom, wife, realtor, friend, you know,
Right.
daughter.
Love having people in your life like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So this transformation's been happening. How did that affect your business this year?
2023 was my best year ever. I've had so many colleagues and friends in the business say about what a rough year it was. And I actually had my best year in volume and production that I've ever had. And I feel like it was, I mean, in so much, when we started working together, and me just learning who I want to be, who I can be, who I didn't believe I was, who I
Mhm.
couldn't see was
Right.
in there, and becoming that person, and just putting that out there, and you know having the belief that I can do this, and that I can help lead my team, and be a good co-owner, co-founder of my team, that I can be um, someone who around my office can be seen as someone that is a producer. I've always described myself, "Oh, I'm just a little fish, just in this big pond, at my brokerage. I'm just a little fish." And we went recently to an award ceremony, and I was like, you know what? I'm not such a little fish anymore. I'm doing this, and it's scary. Real estate. Your commissions are not guaranteed. You don't know, sometimes when the next one's coming, and so I now know that I'm not ever going to give in to the, oh, you're not good enough, or this isn't for you, or you can't make this happen. Well, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to go under it, go over it, go around it, go through it to figure out to get to where I need to be successful. Yeah.
That persistent, tenacious grit. I think those are all words that I use now, right?
Grit and grace. I've got to.
How do you, so now define this, Julie? How, she's no longer that other thing. Who is she now?
She's someone that there's so much reframing goes into that mirror, boy. Every morning or every day walking by, whether it's, at the office, anywhere, it's like, okay, sit up straighter and smile and love who you're seeing in the reflection. Whether she's a full face of makeup or not, or whether her hair's done or not, and see the beauty in who she is and what she gives versus how she looks. And if she is not the size she wants to be, well, okay, is she still beautiful, and is she still doing the things that make her happy and that propel her forward in her career, and making sure that again, and we've talked about this, that my clients know that they are cared for and loved, and my clients become like family. It's I they I see them at my client events, or I send them cards. I make sure to connect if unfortunately they've lost a pet or a loved one, or they've had a celebration of an anniversary or something. I try to really hone in and make sure that I acknowledge that, and they see me and I see them in
Mhm.
a genuine light, that it's not just a superficial hi, text, that doesn't have any meat or bones to it.
Yeah. Well, and this is really, when we talk about your expertise as an agent client connection, I don't know anyone who does it better than you. And we're talking seriously lifelong clients, to such an extent that their kids and even their grandkids want to use you, and you've actually got this down to a system of things. Walk us through the things that work really great for you and how you take this wanting to make people feel amazing authentically, genuinely, how that now works in your business.
Oh, I one of the things that I've always tried to do is you're and it's been a mantra or a motto, is I'm never going to throw you into just some house. My goal is to find you a home, and no, you're never going to find the perfect home. It's a series of compromises of what you need, want, love, hate, but it's the same way with my relationship with them. I'm never going to just slam you into a box or a number or an address, or the top of what I write on a file, your last name and the address of your house. They are so much more to me, and I have to make sure that they understand, whether it's sending them, a week or two before their birthday, a message that has 102 free places to get great stuff from, from Denny's Grand Slam to Starbucks or Black Rock Coffee or whatever it might be, at
Mhm.
102 places, and to let them know that they are um, important to me when I see that something, and I try really hard to stay up with social media, that maybe they're having a hard time with something, or something has happened in their life, and that I genuinely connect with them, even if it is, because some people think text message or are impersonal, but I do that, or I'm one to grab the phone and do a little quick video sitting in my car, you know,
Mhm.
and send them that, just so that they can see me, hear me, feel me, or a voice recorded message. Anything that is personal, I
Mhm.
make sure that, and even with the handwritten notes that I send, they're not long, they're not 18 paragraphs. It's just the fact that um, that I want them to know that I took the time, because who doesn't love to get mail? Who doesn't love to open it up and it's not a bill and it's not a junk mail and it's not some flyer for something you don't need or want, but someone is truly caring about you and trying to connect. And
Mhm.
therefore people then know the genuine heart that I have. And then my business is 100% by referral. And so then they will refer me because they know. And this is, I just had a referral the other day from some amazing clients who I've known for over 25 years. And they told a friend of theirs who was a neighbor about me. And he said, you know what, you know, Sean told me that I can trust you. And that's all he said.
Mm.
And I just wanted to turn to mush and cry because I wear my heart on my sleeve. But literally just went through my body like electricity, like, yes, and that was all he needed. This person told this other person, I can trust you. And that's all he
Mm.
needed. And he now trusts me, and I'm doing my thing and communicating. That is another huge part for me, is a big communicator with
Mhm.
my clients and keeping
Mhm.
in constant communication.
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
personal touches and the communication is where I feel like I excel.
I love that. I think so many people think that um, when they talk about marketing or branding, right? Let's just go there for a second. There's a color and there's a theme and there's all these kind of things, and that's what people have to see. But your brand is your trust and your ethics and your courtesy and your grace. All the things that make you you are the things that stand out to those clients. How you make them feel. Because when people feel like they can speak with you because you are trustworthy, like they can, this very challenging place that they're in their life when they're buying or selling a home. Sorry, one of the most emotional things you can do in life, other than the birth of a
Roller coaster.
child, right, is buying or selling a house. And so I think the way I see it, I think of you as, you know, you have them in your care, and
And that is, I struggled with what I would use as a symbol, for our team, and it was the first thing that always, and it's a picture, and it's just a black outline of a house with a red heart in the center, and there are these hands under it. So
I love
it's
it.
these hands holding this little black outline of a house and a red heart in the middle, and that is kind of how I kind of sum up who I am as an agent.
Yeah.
I'm holding you by your heart, your house, with my hands, and you are so delicate, and you mean so much to me that I want to make sure, to a fault, so that, sometimes I'm a little too, I sometimes have to, think, okay, boundaries, where are the boundaries, girl? No, I throw them out the window. I know that I'm supposed to, but oh well, throw them to the wind, because it means more to me when they know that if something has happened and they need to call me at 11 o'clock at night because it is so important. Okay, you know what? They're calling me for a reason, and it's not, something silly. And they know that if they need me, I'm there. And my friends and family know the same thing, and that is so important to me. And I actually think of it not as a nuisance or a hindrance. I take it as an honor that they know that I am that they are that important to me,
Right.
that I am willing to pick up if they need me.
Well, and I'll tie a pretty bow on this for you. You do that for them, but now you do it for yourself. Now you've got you in your hands.
Hands, yep, because I didn't ever.
Yeah.
And now I see that I can't be that for others if I am not going to be it for myself.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of guilt of, if as a mom, have I not instilled this or that for my girls, or have I done this wrong or done that wrong? And you know what? None of us are perfect, and I'm not by any means, but I feel like if you know me and you know my heart, then you know that I have the best of intentions for you. And
Mhm.
now I have the best of intentions for me, because I couldn't sustain helping others if I didn't figure out how to love on myself and feel better about myself, and to not constantly be thinking those horrible, negative, nasty things about myself that you so beautifully and eloquently have done this to me so many times, and you've probably done it and I didn't even realize till a couple of times later. You would say,
Mhm.
well, what if I said that about you? What if, or what if, how did you say it? You would like, well, Julie, what if I told you those things? If I was saying that about me, I said that to you, and I'd be like, no, Cole, gosh, don't say that about yourself. Don't believe that. That's not true. Why? No, 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 no. You're amazing. And you're like, I'm Julie. Why does that?
No,
Why can't you, think of that for yourself? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yep,
yeah.
you're right.
Well, and I remember one time, one thing I said to you, I said, would you ever be friends with someone that talked to someone else about like that? Mm-mm. No
Mm-mm,
way. No
mm-mm.
way. Well, Julie, this has been so extraordinary. I know there are a lot of people who are listening to this who are so grateful for your words and who are there with you. The sisterhood. And by the way,
Mhm.
guys, I know the guys who are listening, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff you go through too. So I'm
Yep.
not gonna discount you.
Never.
But
Yep.
specifically for a lot of women and how we're raised to be in um this certain thing, right? We have to be beautiful, we have to be thin, we have to be all those kind of things, which you are gorgeous, completely, woman. I'm telling you right now.
Thank you.
And it's because of so many different things. By the way, I had this wonderful conversation with my husband the other day, and we were talking about men don't necessarily have to be stylingly beautiful, although in a lot of movies now you see a lot of shirtless men, and that's the ideal body for men is starting to change. We didn't used to see that
Hmm.
all the time. Now we do.
No.
But men, it's not that they can't be handsome and good looking. They can't fail. Men are not allowed to
Mm.
fail. So when they fail, that's when they feel less than. So women, when we don't feel beautiful, we're less than. Men, when they fail. So all of us have these preconceived uh, our society has done such an incredibly wonderful job of teaching us how we are not what we need to be through.
Enough.
We're not enough. We're not enough.
Yes, men become distinguished and we become tired and haggard and it's hard. And I
Yeah.
can see where, and I'm glad you said that because I didn't think about what is now what men are having to deal with. And I even think about the television shows that I watch, and you're right, there is that is becoming a thing for men as well. And I'm glad you pointed that out too. And you're right. I
Yeah.
shouldn't just hold it for us as women because that's not it's not everyone's experience. There could be
Well,
others.
it's our human condition, right?
Mm.
But there are people here who have heard your wonderful wisdom and heard your experience, and that's the stuff that changes lives. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with me today, for showing everybody this beautiful heart and soul that I know is Julie. And I just can't wait, just keep watch I mean, because you're already on a great trajectory. I just get to sit back and do this. I just get to sit back and applaud, right? And just watch, and it's just
Well,
fun to
I'm
watch.
hoping that you're giving yourself the well-deserved round of applause and pat on the back because you are the catalyst that has helped me see what I need to do to get to be this me. And without you, I wouldn't be where I am today in the confidence and the strength and the things that you have made me recognize just personally, but then professionally. That's a whole nother time we could talk. It's not just about, but like I said, we needed to work on the inner Julie to get to where we are with the business Julie. And I am so looking forward to what we can do with her,
I
the
love
two
it.
of us.
I love it. It's a good partnership. It's a good partnership.
Mhm.
Well, Julie, thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your wonderful heart and your time today. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you, lady.
Thank you. Same back to you.